I'm Yvonne Hamoud, registered social worker and owner of New Moon Counseling, but out of the office, I'm a mom, wife, daughter, sister, and friend. Join me each week as I sit with a special guest to discuss everyday things that impact our mental health. We'll be chatting about everything from mental health and relationships to media and current events, as well as personal experiences and reflections, all in the hopes of normalizing our humanness and helping you see that you're not alone. This is Outside the Therapy Room. Hi everyone, welcome back to Outside the Therapy Room. Today we are joined by Chris. Hi Chris.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
That's good. I think before we started recording, I'm like, I love this topic, but I'm not huge into this world. And so today we're diving into sports and the psychology, I guess, of fandom, and why we care so deeply about teams that we don't necessarily play for, or
we wish we would play for. Yeah.
Right. There's that wish, or like some cities just erupt with joy when they win a championship, or sometimes it can be chaos after a win. So that's our little chat for today.
Yes.
Last time you were here was back in season 1.
Yes.
And so we've already kind of done introductions, but do you want to briefly introduce yourself for folks who are just tuning in this season?
Yeah, for sure. I'm Chris. I'm a registered psychotherapist at Yvonne's clinic, and I've been working here for about a year and a half. I've been a therapist for about 3 years, and I've been a sports fan for about 20 years.
Wow.
Yes.
What's your team?
Well, so I think, a disclaimer is very important because all sports are equal, but some are more equal than others, right? So I'm a soccer fan first and foremost. That's what I grew up with. I grew up in Germany, and obviously soccer is huge there. More recently, I've also come to enjoy watching hockey and football. Although with hockey, I do find that it's more so during the playoffs, which I know sort of maybe excludes me from a diehard hockey fan, but the regular season's very long and has a lot of games. And because there's other sports happening, you sort of have to prioritize, which I'm sure other people can relate to that have a little bit more.
Yeah.
Sports that they like to watch, some overlap. Yeah. My teams are VfB Stuttgart for soccer, as well as a little bit of Manchester United, and of course the local Hamilton Forge FC. The record champions in the Canadian Premier League, of course. And I like the Leafs for hockey, and I like the Detroit Lions for football because I grew up in Leamington when we moved to Canada. Leamington, Ontario, right by Windsor, near the U.S. border. Yeah. That's
interesting you mentioned locally kind of where your fandom comes from, because again, my question is always how does somebody become a fan of a team? So you mentioned kind of locally, and I think, again, recently we had the Blue Jays playing, and I think the whole country kind of riled up to support maybe not the whole country, the majority of the country.
A lot of the country, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense, especially I think the Blue Jays was maybe a bit of a unicorn in the sense that it felt like Canada versus the USA a little bit because, the Jays are Canada's only baseball team. And of course, this year has been a little bit more rivalrous, to sort of put it gently anyway. So I think a lot of people were very much sort of getting on board with that. And, we love the USA-Canada rivalry and the Four Nations this year. That was huge, right? Also some of the best hockey I've ever seen played. So I think there's a lot of passion and a lot of skill that often comes together when you have that, sort of rivalry. And but how does somebody pick their sports team is a great question because it's interesting. I have 2 brothers. We're similar in age, and none of us support the same soccer team.
Oh,
and
really?
We have a different philosophy each for how we got to our team. So the team that I picked is the one that my family is from that city for the last 400 years. My family always lived in that city, and my grandpa was a big fan of that team, so I decided to sort of continue the family legacy. At the time that we were really starting to watch soccer, it was right after the World Cup in 2006, and of course we supported Germany, and my brother picked a team that had a lot of the German players on it. So he picked Werder Bremen. Since then, they have 0 national players, but of course you can't abandon your team. So even though the reason for him choosing that team no longer exists, he's still a diehard supporter. And then my older brother picked the one that was most popular at his school, because it was in the province that we lived in Germany.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of different reasons, and even though maybe some of those reasons have shifted, you still stick with your team, right? For example, I don't live in Germany anymore. I haven't been to that city in years. I haven't seen one of their games in person in 20 years, right? But still love them. Yeah, still, they're playing tomorrow. They played on Wednesday. They're doing well this season. We're feeling strong.
That's so interesting. And when you said like I have to kind of follow along the family legacy, it sounds like it's been like a family team. And a lot of people talk about kind of being married into a team, and that's something I always joked about. My husband has been a huge Patriots fan for football.
Okay.
And so I just kind of suddenly I'm wearing all the Patriots merch. And I'm like, please nobody ask me about a player or a game, because I don't know anything about it besides like Tom Brady at the time. And like Gronk, and like now I know some of the team at that time. But again, that was my husband's favorite team. I came fresh with no real team or care for football really, and that was something that I adopted. And so it's interesting, like the family legacy, being married into a team.
Was that a team that he picked, or was that a team that he was born into, or?
I don't know. I think he picked. I don't think his family really watched too many sports beside him and his older brothers. But I believe they're all kind of into their own teams now, kind of similar to your brothers with football and with basketball as well. But yeah, it's just interesting. Like I've heard a lot too. Like we're just like this is just a fan that we're a part of now because I married into it, or because this large group in my family really likes this team.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I married into a family I'm a Leafs fan, right? Yeah. And of course, a team that would be very much on the opposite end of that are the Boston Bruins. But my wife has an uncle who's actually a Hall of Famer
cool.
in hockey for the Bruins. So when I'm in her family, they have all his stuff in the basement, and once in a while there's a little bit of a joke, especially when it comes sort of towards the playoffs. And I can tell that her dad actually kind of likes the Leafs, but he's a little bit conservative about how much he shows that, because there's this family legacy of this uncle who, isn't even alive anymore, who played in the 70s or played in the 60s or something, who's but his shadow still looms over the legacy still looms over the family a little bit, which is kind of a cool, as you said, right? The family aspect in sports does definitely exist. There's a funny anecdote. There's a soccer player for a team in Germany called Mönchengladbach. They're actually playing today, and he's the only player on that team who, on his birthday when he was born, his family registered him to the club as a fan. So they have in sports, especially in soccer and some other sports as well, they have these fan clubs that are pretty serious and that you can register for, and he was registered for it on his birthday, and it's a massive thing that he's literally a day one, and he's the only one on the team who's been there, and of course he carries massive clout in that fan base and stuff.
It's a sense of loyalty that we can have towards fans, or towards a team as fans. But I think like sports fandom kind of taps into our need for belonging, right? Like I just imagine you in like your little blue Maple Leafs jersey, just like among a whole bunch of Boston Bruin jerseys, and just like being solo, if that's even something that you're comfortable doing with your partner's family. But it is kind of like the sense of belonging that we get, and that kind of sense of belonging can start from a young age, where we want to connect and talk about a team. Again, similarly to what you mentioned, your brother kind of coming into the fan base of what was most popular at his school, right? Like I think becoming a fan can give the sense of belonging. And again, recently with the Blue Jays, we went and watched the final game at a restaurant, like bar restaurant, and it was really cool to see strangers high-fiving each other, and everyone's erupting in cheer and like super happy together at the restaurant. the thing went down, so the game stopped, and so my husband pulled it up on his phone, and so the guys behind us he put it in the middle, so the guys behind us can also watch and keep up with it on their phones, since the bar, I don't know what happened to their thing, but again, it just brings this big sense of community and belonging.
Totally. Yeah. One of my favorite sporting experience or fandom experiences was I was in Montreal in Game 6 when they went to the Stanley Cup final a few years ago. And I remember just the streets being absolutely flooded, and we're all watching through a storefront on the street. Everybody's sort of, trying to see. And then when they scored in overtime, the place just erupted, right? And you're hugging strangers and you're having a great time, and people are just, being ecstatic. Like, they identify it with it so much. And then, interesting, I think we'll probably get into this a little bit later, but then before you knew it, there was also, the SQ trucks driving through the street announcing curfew and to go home because they, they didn't want it to escalate too much and stuff. But there's sort of that fine line, right? But it's, when you can feel the momentum and the whole city wanting the same thing and having that sort of joint cause. And of course, we watched the first bit at a restaurant as well, and everybody sang the national anthem together, and it was quite awesome.
It's kind of magical.
Totally. That's the word that I was going to say, actually. It was a bit magical. Absolutely. And it's sort of that idea of joining in pride for something. And there's a huge identity aspect, right? And identifying with the players. I think it's interesting that they always love showing the players as well. For example, during the playing of the national anthem, and you can tell, like, when some of them get emotional, people love that, people point out, like, oh, can you see how into this he is, and can you tell how emotional they're getting and stuff. I think there's some countries at the World Cup, of course, that take that, like, to the next level. Like, if you watch a Brazil game during the World Cup, right, all the players are like screaming the national anthem. There's tears pouring from their eyes. People love it. They get so into it. But
you can see, like, the passion in there, and that's something that somebody like me, I love that, because then I'm equally emotional. Be like, oh my god, like, they got here, they must be so proud. I hope they're not too hard on themselves. Like, I can be very annoying to sit beside when we're watching a big sporting event, because I'm always like, oh no, like, he's probably so discouraged that he didn't catch that. Like, poor guy. Like, I hope he's not too hard on himself. Meanwhile, everyone's like, damn it, that guy didn't catch the ball. But anyways, yes, I think there's so much of this sense of community. Besides some of the things that we mentioned, what do you think fans get from being part of a sport community?
Well, I think there's a very personal aspect of when I watch soccer, right? It's like, because it's something also that I love to play. And if I'm watching soccer, I'm watching people that are at the peak of something that I enjoy doing, and the idea of being able to put yourself in that spot, right? And saying, okay, well, this is what he does with the ball, right? And I can kind of imagine myself doing it, and sort of, there's that very vicarious experience of, this person is taking a skill that I love to the next level. I think that's a very sort of exciting aspect for me anyway. But then there's definitely also the shared experience, right? There's this idea of coming together. There's this idea of being able to really express a lot of feelings very openly, right? I think it's pretty normal and pretty normalized for people to cry when their sporting team loses, or when they, in soccer we have, like, relegation. So if your team finishes bottom of the table, you get kicked out of the league, and you have to go into the next league down, and then you can kind of come back up, which I think actually adds a really fun twist. I wish they had that in hockey and stuff, because when you lose, just, I don't know, there's next year, there's not necessarily that existential kind of aspect. So absolutely, like, shared experiences and shared goals, expression of emotions, being able to really project, right? I think, as therapists, we know that emotional searching and expression and processing takes a lot of work when you're getting very kind of close to it. I think when you can sort of put that in the setting of a sports, you're externalizing it, right? You're identifying with the team, and it's a little bit, they're helping you with that. These 11 guys on the pitch or whatever are helping you with that. So there's that relational aspect as well. Yeah. The
normalizing of crying and being upset, I think that's pretty big for men.
Absolutely.
Because I think that's the only place where it is normalized, or at least understood and validated a little bit. And there is like that, what's the word? Like the shared experience of disappointment or excitement or pride or whatever towards this team. And also something I've noticed, like with my husband and also with my brothers, has been like anytime that we're in a new place and they're maybe feeling a little bit anxious because it's a brand new environment, they don't really know anybody, start talking about sports and suddenly you got like a buddy for the rest of the day. It's such like a comfort thing.
It's a common ground.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a common ground that's not too personal, but you can still share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
Right? But again, you're doing it sort of through the lens of, okay, well, I like this sports team. What do you like? And then, you can sort of test some boundaries a little bit as well. Like, oh, you like this team that my team really doesn't vibe with. Can I push you a little bit here? How do you respond if I, maybe talk a little bit about one of your players that I don't like very much or something? And there's sort of,
But some of that, like, back and forth
100%
is just like, it's nice sometimes.
It's fun. And it's also something to come back to sort of circle the conversation around. And if maybe the conversation deviates and I don't know what to say now, right? You can always kind of come back to it. So there's tons of benefits from being part of that community, and I think it always gives you this sense of forward momentum and progress, right? There's this idea, okay, well, this season maybe we're not doing well, but we're building towards something. There's that dream of the future. I'm noticing these differences from last year. This is already how we're improving. There's that sense of building a skill, building mastery, again, through a sports team, right? In DBT, we talk about the importance of having like building mastery, right? And having a skill. I think, again, this is a very vicarious way of doing that also feels a little bit more low risk because, yes, you're identifying with it, but if the guys don't do well, you're also in a position where you get to forgive, right? And then you can come, you know what, they tried their hardest. And sometimes it's really difficult to do that for ourselves. And to give ourselves that credit and say, we tried our hardest, but, and people get very protective of their guys, right? Like, you talked about the Jays Game 7, right? Ali Kirk on that double play at the end. It came up in conversation. There was always one guy who was like, it's not Kirk's fault. We love Kirk, right? Like, oh, what a great guy. He tried his best. He played a heck of a season, right? And I think people really get something out of being able to stand up for somebody and say that, and maybe helps them internalize that a little bit as well. Yeah.
I think, again, like the sense of bringing people together, I love going to sporting events. It's so fun, even if I have no idea who's like playing. But like I've been to a lot of Raptors games and like Leafs games. I've been to like a couple of Jays games, but I'm so sorry. Fans, like baseball can just be so boring to watch live. People are going to come at me. But I think like, again, it's just such a fun, everybody is cheering, everybody's booing, everyone's standing up from their chair. And like, it's like these things that we're doing as a community. And that's something that I love outside of sports too. Like going to a movie on opening day and like, experiencing that for the first time with everybody and like hearing the gasps and the laughs and the, oh man, like hearing all of that, I get so happy that sometimes I tear up because I'm just like, oh, we're all doing this together. but yeah, like sporting events, stadiums can be just such a fun place to be in.
Yeah, and the community experience really is often central to some key people that are there. So this is not necessarily a thing in North America as much, but in European soccer, what you will often have is you have somebody who's actually kind of at the top of at the bottom of the stands in what you call like the fan zones or the ultras. They have they're not called hooligans, they're called the ultras, and the ultras are sort of like the ultra fans that are, the most dedicated. They bring banners and they do pyrotechnics and choreographies and stuff. And you have somebody at the bottom of the stands who's actually facing the crowd the entire game with a megaphone and telling them what chants to do, telling them, like choreographing and stuff. And he would consider himself, a massive fan. He's spending maybe 10 minutes looking at the game.
Yeah.
But, he's there and he would say, I'm, in service of my team, right? And in soccer, we call the fans the 12th man. They're the 12th man on the pitch. And there's a reason why home teams always are considered to have such an
Yeah.
advantage, right? And they say, going to this place is so hard. This is a place that you don't want to have to play at because the team there, they're so well supported, and the fans are so into it and so fiery and everything.
Yeah. And while I was researching for our episode today, like I found something that said like the collective effervescence, like it's a psychological high that reinforces like these social bonds because we're all cheering. Like everybody who knows that choreography, they're all in it together. It's creating the sense of like the social bond in that moment.
Yeah.
You're never going to see that person again.
Oh yeah.
But I went to a Toronto FC game a while back. And
who did they play? Oh, okay.
Chris, I'm so sorry. I have no idea. I went to the game. It was like through my partner's work. So we went, but I remember my husband being like, oh, where are we sitting? Are we sitting in like the fan section? Are we sitting in like the other team section? We don't want to be in the other team section being the ones cheering for the home team. Like there was a lot of everything is kind of sectioned that way for these reasons.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was interesting to kind of see, but it can be fun. And again, with football, you have tailgates, you have traditions, you have like these superstitions that a lot of fans also keep on. Like I've seen so many people be like, well, I'm not changing my sweater because they won in it, so I have to wear it every time that my team plays. Yes. A lot of these things kind of happen, and it brings a sense of community. Yeah. Speaking of superstitions and traditions, how do fan traditions within family or communities shape this identity or bonding, do you think?
Yes, I mean, from my perspective, I am not from a very superstitious family at all. I think I'll go as far as usually if I watch a game, I try to have some merch near me. I'll wear a jersey, or I have a mug, or I've got some socks on or something. Yeah. I think there's a bit of a ritualistic when there's a World Cup. My family and I, we always make sure to watch one game all together, even though we all live in different places now. We try to come together and watch Germany play one game and that kind of stuff. So I think there's sort of that ritualistic aspect. I know some people do have some strong superstitions about that. I'm as curious as you about how that happens and what role that plays for them. That I'm not gonna wash my jersey, or I'm gonna, I've got to tap the doorway of the TV room, before I walk into it and stuff. It's it's an interesting one. I think maybe there's this feeling of I'm going to do everything that I can and beyond to help my team. There's another really interesting anecdote about superstitions where in the 96 Euro Cup in England, they played against Scotland, which of course that's a big rivalry, Scotland versus England in soccer, and they flew this guy, his name is Uri Geller, you can look him up, Uri Geller, and he was this mentalist, and they actually flew him over the game, and there was this decisive moment where there's this penalty being taken, and Yuri claimed that he moved the ball right before the guy kicked it, and he actually missed the penalty. He got saved by very legendary goalkeeper David Seaman, and there's this video footage of the ball slightly moving. I don't know if it's real or if it's doctored, but it was this really cool where, people will do whatever it takes. Somebody shilled out however many thousands of dollars it takes to rent a helicopter to get the air clearance to fly it over a international match where, likely the Prime Minister of England is there. Maybe the Queen was there. I don't know. Yeah. There's this massive thing, right? Somebody's literally whatever to fly a mentalist over it, which is, it's insane. The odds are by and large that no, he didn't have any impact on it. Yeah. But the fact that there's this penalty miss means people are still talking about it. It was featured in a documentary years later. It's wild.
Crazy. Mm-hmm. That is so wild. And again, that goes just this need to win that the team has to go to all of these different ways to kind of try to have some control over it.
But when they do win, it's just magical.
Yeah.
I remember the 2014 World Cup. Germany was playing in Brazil, and we had this, first of all, massive victory over Brazil, 7-1. You probably remember it. It was pretty popular. Yeah. And since has been kind of a meme. But we're playing against Argentina, and I remember watching it in my grandma's room on this like tiny, in Germany, on this like tiny 12-inch sort of TV kind of thing. And when we won, it was just like we went bananas. Like we had champagne and everything. And I remember like telling my mom, I was like, "This is the greatest day of my life." Like I was 17. This is as good as it gets. You know, apologies to my wife. This was before we were. It was the greatest day of my life. And she didn't love that I said that. My mom at the time, she was like, "Really? This is?" And I was like, "Yes, this is the greatest day of my life." And I remember when I was visiting friends and family throughout Germany all that summer, and I would ask, like, "Is this the TV where you became world champion? Like, where did you become? This is where I became world champion." Because it was, we won. Yes. And the newspaper the next morning, right, was like, "We won. We did it. The nation is world champions yet again." And it's,
But it's this collective. Like
100%.
We did it.
We did it. Yes.
Yeah.
Which, you know, maybe lends itself to superstition then. I don't know. Because it's...
But we feel like this could be a whole other episode, but we feel I'm drawing like similarities between like how we can feel like celebrities are like our best friends, and we can get really kind of entangled in their lives and 100%. Take ownership. I think that the same thing happens in sports. And I know, like, watching my husband go through like the Tom Brady leaving the Patriots and
the grief.
Yeah, like the grief of
the
that,
loss.
but then also him moving, and then Sam suddenly now going into, you know, just following Tom Brady's like career. But like there is this like, oh, he's such a great guy. Like, look at what he's doing. Look at all of this. And I'm like, yeah, there's probably people on the other end saying like he's not the greatest guy, but like he's, again, like we can have this, I don't know, like sense of, like we know them more than what we know. Yeah. And then this like ownership that we can have to our favorite players or our team.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, whenever Germany goes through a struggle in their squad, there's always, you can go in the comment section, I guarantee you right now you'll find them. Yeah. There's always these guys like, "We need the guys back." And they'll reference these old guys like their personality. You know, we need their personality back on the team. Like, you don't know their personality, but there's this feeling that we do, right? Yeah. You know, we need Podolski again because he was such a funny guy, you know, like he really shook up the team, all this kind of stuff. And yeah, I've had dreams about running into soccer players in the street and being able to talk to them. It's it's really we want to feel like we really know them, right? They're our guys, they're our team, and
they can be our heroes too. Yeah,
definitely.
Okay, so we talked about like, you know, cheering for our team. It can be so positive. It can bring us so many good things. It can make us feel like a sense of community. And I think, again, you know, something I forgot to mention is the sense of community and traditions. I know in football, there's some teams and some cities who have these traditions, like, and they've called themselves that. It's a new identity that the city has kind of collectively kind of given themselves. Like with Buffalo, it's the Bills Mafia, you know, all around the city. And I know like the Philadelphia Eagles are also really, really big, passionate towards like their team. And so it doubles like this community identity, which again can bring up a lot of positives, sense of belonging, all of those things. But what makes some fans shift from passionate, cheering on, going all in with their team, to then maybe becoming aggressive? And like you pointed out earlier, watching the game in Montreal just right outside, and then hearing like, you know, the cops kind of going by, putting curfews and just, you know, setting up, you know, certain spots to just kind of be there because they were ready for some of these things to be happening. Yeah,
I think we all remember the 2011 Vancouver Canucks, right? When they tore the city to shreds. Even maybe sort of in a more weird way when the Eagles won the Super Bowl this year and they trashed their own city after winning. It's something that I've tried to wrap my mind around because I do want to put out the disclaimer that my experiences in sports and going to sport have been nothing but positive. And I think it's too bad that those like occurrences, they end up sort of pushing themselves into the spotlight because they need a lot of attention because they can't just be doing that, right? And violence among sports fans, again, maybe more so outside of North America, but it's a huge problem, right? Where you have teams, fans like meeting up ahead of time to fight each other before the game, and there's political violence associated with it, and clashes with police. I'm really curious about that, and I think it kind of boils down. Maybe there's some group psychology here as well, but I wonder if a lot of, again, sports are attractive to people that are looking for trouble, and they're infiltrated by these people who don't actually really care so much about sports, but are looking for a place to express that kind of stuff. And they see, well, everybody else kind of gets to express however they want to, and maybe I can do that too, with maybe not the greatest intentions in mind. But yeah.
No, I think there's something to that, because even in the comment section during the Philadelphia Eagles win, like there was people being like, why are you destroying this? Like, those aren't the real fans. Like, all of these things were kind of coming up in the comment section. But I think it's also, like you said, group psychology, like mob mentality, just kind of going into like this happy rioting, which then maybe somewhere in there shifts into like not so positive and becomes a lot more destructive. But yeah, I think there's a couple things like emotional intensity. You're in such a high that your team just won. There's also like drinking and all of these other things, that substances that can get involved as you're watching the game.
Yes, that's probably a little bit on the darker side of sports as well. The sort of relationship with alcohol use and abuse, definitely. Well, I think, what we were talking about earlier, where it allows you to express emotions without necessarily having to do your own, emotional work. You're more sort of projecting. I think the dangers of that, right, of really funneling your emotions into someone outside of yourself, is that you maybe then don't have that awareness of how much am I actually impacted by this, and what else is coming up, right? I'm feeling distraught, I'm feeling really sad, I'm feeling really angry. What else is coming to the surface there now? Yeah. That can lead to some not so great behavior.
Yeah, fights breaking out in games or online. People maybe getting a little bit too personally offended when a team is criticized. So again, like this ownership.
But there's even videos, recently on TikTok and Instagram, and fans backing over their TV in the driveway.
Yeah, because their team lost or something.
Because their team lost, and I wonder. I think about those people, and I sort of try to put myself in their shoes. It's very hard to relate to, because, you're destroying something that, you paid for as, something that you probably like a lot. But what else must be going on in that person's life, right? What is sports the stand-in for? Why are you? There's this really strong identification with sports to the point where it's compensating for something else, right? There must be something. So I think, when we think about wanting sports to be a positive presence in our lives, and kind of understanding some of the vulnerabilities that we have, also maybe, having a real look at your relationship with sports, right? If you feel like it's making up for some other things, and maybe you're spending a lot of time. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I'm even thinking there's a lot of gambling that can come around sports as well. And so if you bet on the opposite team and your team wins, there's a high, excitement, but there's also a big impact that can have on you, which again can sometimes just create the environment to feel like, okay, this is a space where I can express things without, being the main focus of something. And then that can maybe go the wrong direction.
Totally. And I talk about sports being co-opted for nefarious purposes, right? I mean, sports betting hugely. Huge. You have companies that are massively benefiting off of people, their mental health and their maybe a little bit addictive personalities, their love for the team, wanting to find extra ways to kind of express that. I think, again, if we talk about the Blue Jays, I think a big issue that a lot of people really had was that they felt, that the Dodgers just bought their team, and it was just money versus passion, or money versus an organic team. There's a really tragic example of actually a Colombian soccer player being killed by the cartel after scoring an own goal and losing them a bunch of money. And it was, like there's massive examples of sports being co-opted and being this, we know that this is this really emotional space. We know that this is this really emotional community. Can we get in there and exploit it for our own purpose? And it's really, really quite sad. I think there's maybe a need to kind of protect that a little bit more. And I think, recently people have felt a little bit disappointed by some of the decisions that are made by various sports governing bodies. And a big one recently is the Champions League, switching it to they call it the Swiss format, where you'd have a big table instead of groups. And the idea was to have a few more teams, to have a few more games, squeeze a little bit more money out of it. Same thing with the World Cup that's coming to Canada and the US next summer. It's going to be the biggest one ever, right? But now you're going to have teams that nobody's really heard of. And yes, we're giving them a platform, but it also is costing the quality of the game. Because as much as I'm excited for teams like Cape Verde to be at the World Cup, it's a really small country. They don't have a very great team. It's going to hurt the quality of the game.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of politics within sports as well, like you mentioned, just like finances, getting money, all of these things.
Oh, yeah. Massive corruption.
Oh, yeah.
Massive.
All of those things. But actually, it brings me to my next point. Like, how do you think social media, and their portrayal of teams, the players, the owners, like all of those things, how do you think that maybe can amplify the fan culture in maybe an aggressive way?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I see a lot of negativity on social media and a lot of players that are being really abused, right? I think a massive issue in sports, and maybe a little bit more so in certain areas where maybe this issue is highlighted a lot more is racism towards players in social media. There was in the Euro Cup in 2021, it was two young black players that missed the penalties for England, and there was just some really horrible racism in social media showing up, and those players have spoken like outwardly how hard that is for them and how impactful it is, right? And the moment that we notice that it's starting to have this really, really, take a look at what does this really mean for you? Are sports really this important that, you need to, you have the feeling that you need to kind of resort to these racist attacks, right? Yeah. It's completely out of scope for what is supposed to be a celebration of human achievement and human capabilities, right? Sports are meant to highlight how amazing we can be and how amazing our community can be. And it's really sad and tragic that those groups and that those sentiments still find their way into infiltrating our communities. And I think social media, as in a lot of ways, can amplify that quite a bit and can really highlight those issues as well.
For sure. Not to mention like the mental health of players as well. If they're going in and they're getting these hate messages and these hate comments online from, people that are kind of hiding behind their phone, like it can impact their mental health. It can impact how they're playing, all of these things. And it's hard.
Well, and so much of social media now is bots, and you don't even know if you're talking to a real person anymore. And you don't even know if the people that are making some of those comments, of course there are actual racists in the comment section, right? But I wonder how much of that is also being amplified by bad agent bots that are, also throwing fuel on the fire, highlighting this idea, oh my gosh, my sports community is so racist. I don't even know where to start now. I don't, do I really want to associate myself with this? There's really this mistrust that social media can have, because you're talking to somebody in person, right? And it seems like everything's great. And then you go out into the bigger world and suddenly there's all these issues that show up. Yeah. And it really actually just takes away from the community of sports. And we talk about social media, but oftentimes it feels more impersonal than anything else, and it feels less social than anything else.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we've talked about social media and so many of our topics and like the negative effects of it, and that's definitely one for sure. Flipping on the other end, like how can people enjoy sports and still like stay passionate without losing control or falling into the negativity?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think, as in a lot of areas of life, it's a little bit about spending some time understanding your relationship with it and knowing what are your goals for sports, right? My goals for watching soccer are to connect with people around me. They are to enjoy just the time that I watch the sports. They're an opportunity for this vicarious experience. And setting some boundaries with yourself, right? Of what does this actually mean for me when, and knowing your red flags. Okay, when is this starting to compensate for something else?
Yeah.
When am I really putting a lot of myself in this? Where are some areas in my life maybe that I'm feeling frustrated, that I'm noticing I'm starting to maybe push into sports, because there's a lot more easily accessible space to vent that.
Yeah, just awareness, I think, too.
100%.
Yeah, just be aware of how you're showing up. What is it doing for you? And maybe noticing your surroundings. Are you a natural fan, but then you fall into a group of people who maybe do show a little bit more of that aggression? Is there an opportunity for you to still be a fan, but maybe in an environment that feels a little bit safer for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. As a fan, for you, how do you think somebody can tell if their emotional investment in a team is starting to affect their mental health?
Yes, I think there's definitely ways. I think if you are noticing that, your team lost and you're miserable for the rest of the week, that's probably not a great sign. If you're noticing that you are yelling at the TV, that you are finding yourself being aggressive, or that you're being reactive or snappy to the people around you, I think it might be a moment to reflect. And again, I would imagine that there's probably something else going on in life, that it's not just about the sports. I think, for better or for worse, sports is something that really allows us to go a little bit outside of ourselves. And this also allows us to maybe understand how we're feeling, right? If I'm getting really intensely emotional at this sport, and maybe more so than usual, maybe that can be an indicator, a positive sign to myself, that maybe there's some stuff that I need to be looking for, because I notice just how ready I am to get really excited, or how ready I am to really get a little bit angry or a little bit frustrated. Yeah, I think the other thing is with mental health and sports in a positive way. I think, especially we're in the season of some seasonal depression, right? I think it's giving some people something to look forward to on a weekly basis, something reliable. I know that there's going to be football on Sunday for me to watch. I know that the playoffs are going to be coming up in the spring. I know, all this kind of stuff. And I think that can be a really sort of a positive consistency and staple in somebody's life as well.
Yeah, and again, like the social aspect that we talked about it too. February is the Super Bowl. February is usually a pretty low month where, we notice in our profession that it's kind of like, people are struggling with the season, with it being dark so late. Still, we're kind of like down from the high of like the holidays and all of these get-togethers, and again, the Super Bowl in this case, just because of when it usually happens, it can, again, build this excitement of, I'm going to have community. I'm going to a Super Bowl party, or I'm going to be with friends. We're going to be enjoying food together, being, with one another, doing, watching the Super Bowl, doing this thing. And so it can, again, give you this sense of positive community, belonging, all of that. But just, again, be mindful and aware of when it's maybe starting to go a little bit on the other end.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. I'm excited for the Super Bowl. I told you before we started recording that I can get very emotional on behalf of the players, just feeling so excited for them. They did such a cool achievement together.
Yes.
So that's something that I'm looking forward to, and I know that you're looking forward to the Premier League.
Oh, I'm looking forward to so much stuff. Actually, shout out to the Detroit Lions. They won last night.
Yay.
Huge win. There's a game tonight. There's a game tomorrow morning. It's just awesome. This is a really dense time for sports, and I love it. Leafs won last night. Yeah. Things are going well. Yes. Yeah. Except for the World Cup. Always something to look forward to with sports. This is really awesome. Yeah.
There is. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Chris. And for our listeners, again, just be mindful of some of the things we mentioned and enjoy your sports responsibly.
Yes, exactly.
But again, thank you so much for joining us today. This is our last episode of the year. I really appreciate you listening to our podcast. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season full of joy, laughter, maybe some wins from your team, and hopefully a little bit of rest. We will be back with new episode mid-January. So make sure to stay tuned for some new and returning guests and some awesome conversations to come. All the best. Happy holidays and Happy New Year. Thank you for listening to Outside the Therapy Room. This podcast is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. If you reside in Ontario and are interested in working with one of our therapists, please visit our website in the show notes. If you reside outside of Ontario, a quick Google search or search through Psychology Today will help you find a therapist near you.